Have you ever seen a Pokemon card artwork and said to yourself, hey, I know that location? Well, if so, then that makes two of us. If not, then buckle up. I found every card artwork depicted in the Johto region and put them all together in this video. I hope you enjoy.
Fly high, banana leaf, palm frond. My guy, the Pokemon Don Juan. Long neck, thick cheeks, couple 100 pounds. Dinosaur, but no fossils found on the ground. Now it's time to lock in, cause it's going down.
So how does it work? If you've seen my previous video showcasing the Johto region, then you already have a good idea. But I am switching it up a bit moving forward. The main goal is just to establish some consistency, so I have 3 rules. 1. The card must have an identifiable landmark or otherwise state the location on the card. Does this card have something that points to a particular place in the region, or is the name of that card a location itself? 2. If that identifiable landmark isn't solid enough evidence on its own, then the Pokemon or trainer must be found in that location in the main games. How do you know that Pokemon is in that cave in particular? Well, it's the only cave they can be caught in Soul Silver. 3. Minimal artistic expression that deviates from the main games. Are the other background features consistent, or are there too many variations between the card and the game? If you don't check any of those 3 boxes, you're out of here! And that's it! I want this to be fun for everyone, so I'm not trying to be overly strict, just consistent. Alright, I think it's time for us to dive in. Welcome to Johto. We're going to start our adventure in the same place millions of us have started over the last 25 years.
New Park Town.
Welcome to New Bark Town, where our Johto adventure begins. First, we have Chikorita in front of Professor Elm's lab. We can see the reddish door, matching windows, and the 3 vents above the 2nd story windows. We also have this card as a Japanese promo, but I'm counting it as one since it is the same artwork. There are a handful of other stamped Japanese promos throughout Johto, so I won't verbalize it each time, but I will throw them up on the screen when they appear. Next, we have Professor Elm's lecture, with Elm holding Chikorita, almost like he knew that's who I was going to take in my first Heart Gold playthrough. Sorry, Cyndaquil and Totodile. His lab is again visible behind. We also have this Pokemon League stamped alternate art, where the 3 starters were replaced with Togepi, Pichu, and Munchlax, but the lab is again visible in the background. The main difference though is now we can see the windmill weather vane thingy. Next, we have a different iteration of Elm's lab for the professor's research artwork, this being the lab from Pokemon Gold and Silver. We can see the slanted green roof, the 2-pane windows, and the brown trim at the base of the lab. If we head inside Elm's lab, we have Professor Elm's training method, which doesn't appear to be much, but the big clues here are the overlapping papers on the wall, along with the hexagon-shaped windows that align with the inside of Elm's lab in Heart Gold. Back outside of the lab, we have our first Pokemon Pocket exclusive, Lyra. Lyra is the female playable character in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. There actually wasn't an option to play as a girl back in Gold and Silver, but you could in Pokemon Crystal, and her name was Chris, with a K. Anyways, here's Lyra getting ready to embark on her Johto adventure standing in front of Elm's Heart Gold lab. These next 3 Pokemon are probably the only surprises to most viewers, but we have some Pokemon chillin' just outside of New Bark Town. First is Tentacruel, with Sachiko Adachi's unique art style showing the New Bark houses and weather vanes in the background. And yes, Tentacruel can be caught while surfing in the small patch of water on the east edge of New Bark, along with Route 27, which is the adjacent route to the east. We also have this Chinchou, which can be caught in New Bark and Route 27 while fishing. It's subtle, but we can see the New Bark style house in the background. Finally, we have Luvdisc, which may be eye-opening since it's a Pokemon from the Hoenn region, but since Ruby and Sapphire along with Diamond and Pearl had been released between Gold and Silver and the remakes Heart Gold and Soul Silver, a handful of Gen 3 and 4 Pokemon make some cameos in the Johto region. Luvdisc in particular can be caught in Route 27, the adjacent route, which checks out with this artwork showing the weather vanes iconic with New Bark's homes as seen here on the left side. And that'll do it for New Bark. And we're off! Not far to go until we reach our first destination,
Cherry Grove Town.
Cherry Grove houses just one Pokemon, and it's a very subtle one to boot, but it's Totodile, the water starter from Johto. How we know this is Cherry Grove is thanks to some serious detective work by yours truly, but we have the water in the background, plus the white fence on the left with the red flowers just behind Totodile. Scouring the entire Johto region for white fences near water with adjacent flower beds, it narrows down our search results to exactly one location, Southwest Cherry Grove. I'll throw up a reference image so you can see it for yourself. I know the rocks are not in the same spot, but the other features are all lining up perfectly, so I'm pretty sure we have this one locked in. Now I'd say it's time to get badge number 1, but we're going to take a quick detour first.
Dark Cave.
Technically, the part of Dark Cave we're about to reference is accessed later in the game, but it's nearby our next destination, so we're checking it off our list now. And that one Pokemon is Wobbuffet. This Wobbuffet has some subtle clues here, but we do have it putting its hand up over its face, which casts a shadow, implying it is dark as we move further from the entrance into the cave. And full disclosure, other Wobbuffet cards are depicted with its arm up to its face, but without the shadow. Additionally, Dark Cave is the only cave location in Johto that Wobbuffet can be caught. And this final piece of evidence is a big one, because we're going to reference it numerous times throughout this video. But in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Game Freak added loading screens for the transitions between locations. The background image is static, no matter when you visit, but depending on whether you visit in the morning, day, or night, different Pokemon are shown in that image. I'm going to use the loading screens from Mount Silver as an example to see the difference between morning, day, and night. For Dark Cave, all 3 loading screens happen to show who? Wobbuffet. Okay, we're headed into town for real this time.
Violet City.
Violet City is where Ethan and Lyra received their first badge. We have a total of 8 cards here, all revolving around the most iconic location at the back of town, Sprout Tower. So we'll start it off with the Sprout Tower card, as depicted in the Gold and Silver era. Note the 3-tiered roof, which is the big identifier compared to another location we'll see later on. Also the Bellsprout decor, which was the inspiration for the tower. Here we have a Sage's training card, which I just love this artwork. The Sage has its arms crossed, the Bellsprout has its leaves crossed, Hoot Hoot has its wings crossed, all looking so well disciplined. We can head inside Sprout Tower, where we have this Bellsprout, which is famously found in the Sprout Tower. The pillar in the middle aligns with this screenshot from Heart Gold. Up on the roof of Sprout Tower, we have Rattata, which can be found on the upper floors of the tower in the games. Note the stone lanterns in the background, because next we have Mareep, standing in front of 4 of those stone lanterns. These lanterns are iconic in Violet City. They align the curved footbridges leading to Sprout Tower. And while technically there aren't 4 lanterns in that close of proximity to each other, we do have several of them as seen here around the bridges. Speaking of curved bridges, we have some Pokemon hanging out on the bridges. Now, I have to say, out of every landmark I tried to identify, nothing gave me more of a headache than these wooden foot bridges, since there are another 10 cards or so featuring curved foot bridges. However, the other cards not listed in this video deviated a little too much for my liking, with different colors, additional background details not found in the games, etc. Even these 2 cards have different railing styles, but each artist has their own unique take on it, and Fortress has the closest match on the bridge architecture itself, and behind Lairon has this tree style found nowhere else outside of a small island next to the bridges in Violet City leading to Sprout Tower. We can see that match here. And one quick footnote, I will add the cards that didn't end up making the cut for Violet City near the end of the video so you can see what I'm talking about. Like I said, this city gave me headaches, but thankfully we are through now. Okay, 1 badge down, 7 to go. Time to head somewhere pretty extraordinary next.
Ruins of Alph.
Welcome to the Ruins of Alph, aka an archaeologist's dream. Unknown may have originated from the Ruins of Alph, and we can see one hiding on the wall in this loading screen, along with these 4 on the Ruins of Alph Stadium card. We're about to spend a couple of minutes talking about Unknown, so I thought I'd knock out the other Pokemon found here first. Here's Natu, with some of the ruins visible in the background. I can throw up this reference image so you can see the full ruins and see kind of the square stone architecture there. We also have Wooper hanging out near the main entrance in the middle of the ruins. And we have Smeargle doing its art thing with its iconic green paint. I should add that Natu, Wooper, and Smeargle can all be found in the wild here. Okay, it's time to go down a humongous rabbit hole. Here's a Ruin Wall trainer card from the Neo series. If you haven't played the games before, there are 4 different entrances within the ruins, and each entrance had a puzzle where you had to move stones around to reveal the hidden Pokemon. On this card, we see Kabuto, which is the puzzle for the northeast entrance, which is the first accessible location of the 4 ruins. It's hard to tell, but that also looks like the shadow of a Dratini based on the ear shape. Possibly a Raichu, but you don't see those curls in the middle of its ear, so I lean towards Dratini, but I have zero idea why Dratini would be in there. In Japan, they released a different artwork for the Ruin Wall, this time showcasing the Aerodactyl puzzle, which was the puzzle in the southeast corner, typically the second puzzle completed out of the 4 since the others required additional hidden moves. This time, the shadowy Pokemon appears to be unknown, the letter Y. I'll throw it up here for comparison and let you decide. We also have these 4 ALF lithographs. If you were unaware, there are 28 different variations of unknown, each representing a letter of the alphabet plus an exclamation point and a question mark. Since they are representing letters, you can decipher some hidden code, which was hidden on the walls inside the Ruins of Alph in the main games. Since all 4 of these lithograph cards say ALF in the name, I am including them on the list, and even though the card descriptions are TCG specific, there were entire sentences written on the walls in the mainline game, so that is the reference here. There are 2 other unknown cards that appear to be in an overgrown Ruins of Alph, so perhaps they took place in the future. They did come out in 2015 and 2018, so it could be a modern interpretation of the ruins, and they both have Ruin Wall writing, but one of the 2 cards adds a futuristic obelisk which deviated a little too much for my liking, so I only include the one here. We also have these 4 unknown cards, and I did not think much of these at the time, but once it clicked, it kind of blew my mind that each of these 4 cards give big clues to uncovering the secrets of the 4 ruin puzzles. The one that says Return is tied to the northeast entrance with the Kabuto puzzle, because the in-game lithograph says you must use an escape rope to re-enter the chamber, aka Return. So these unknowns are in the northeast entrance. The Flash unknown card is a little more straightforward since you needed to use the move Flash to open the hidden entrance, so this is the southeast entrance with the Aerodactyl puzzle we saw earlier. The Cure card is most likely because the puzzle Pokemon is Ho-Oh, the legendary cover Pokemon for Pokemon Gold, which is known to carry Sacred Ash, which restores health. The Pokemon lore also mentions in the games that Ho-Oh revived Pokemon who perished in a tragic incident that we'll talk about in a little bit. So Cure is apparently reviving dead Pokemon. Pretty cool party trick, but yes, this card depicts the northwest entrance. Finally, we have the Dark card, which by process of elimination would be the southwest entrance, but I think it might also be because that entrance is only accessible via the basement of Union Cave, so I don't know. But we got the location. Somehow, my friends, we still have over 20 cards to go at the Ruins of Alph, but I know you are not here for unknown, so I'm going to just blitz through the alphabet for all the cards that are depicted with the Ruin Wall writing on the back. A, C, D, E, F, G, H, L, I, N, O, P, Q, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, let's get out of here. On Route 32, we have Execute hanging out under the bullet train. Execute can be found on this route, which happens to be the only route in Johto where you can see the bullet train overhead.
Union Cave.
Union Cave has just one card that seems plausible here, and it's Lapras, which is known to appear in the second basement level, but only on Fridays. So as a kid without the internet at my fingertips, I basically had a 1 in 7 chance of ever finding this Pokemon naturally in the game. This screenshot must be from a Friday. I know that's not a ton to go off of, but factoring in this card being from the Heart Gold Soul Silver set, and Lapras is really only found here outside of the Safari Zone, in a large underground cave pool no less, it's hard to refute that this is the Union Cave Lapras. Just a little further now until we reach our next town.
Azalea Town.
We made it to Azalea Town, where the second badge can be obtained. This town is riddled with secrets, including an entire Team Rocket underground facility. I was really surprised that I wasn't able to identify anything from there, considering with the recent Destined Rivals set showing some love to the Team Rocket executives like Petrol and Proton, but their cards depict unspecified locations. However, we do have the other extremely controversial location, which is the Slowpoke Well in the northeast corner of Azalea Town. For those unaware, people would lop off the tails of Slowpokes as a delicacy, so that makes this card extremely messed up, since this Slowpoke is at the bottom of the well reassuring itself that its tail is still intact. We also have this Slowpoke with the ladder visible in the background, which we can see lines up with the Heart Gold iteration of the well. There's also this Slowpoke, again with the ladder in the background. The same artist depicted a Slowbro in that location with the matching rocks and shallow water. We can see the shallow water inside the Slowpoke well here. Finally, we have Makuhita climbing a ladder, which doesn't appear to be much at first glance, but the ladder is a clue. The bricks are very even and well built, unlike the other cards we've seen here, but from this screenshot outside of the well, plus this one showing the full ladder inside, we can see how organized the bricks are. Also, Makuhita, for whatever reason, can be found in the Slowpoke well in Heart Gold. Just a hop and a skip to our next stop.
Ilex Forest.
Welcome to Ilex Forest, which may remind you of Viridian Forest with one key difference. There is a shrine in this forest dedicated to the mythical Pokemon Celebi, who is actually obtainable through a sequence of events that I can never remember. The shrine has appeared with multiple looks, so you'll see a couple iterations on here, starting with the one behind Farfetch'd, who is hanging out in front of the all-brown shrine. Farfetch'd is the only Pokemon we'll see here that cannot be caught in the forest, but there is a cutscene here with a trainer whose Farfetch'd has run off, which this card artwork seems to be referencing. Paris, on the other hand, is hanging out by the red roofed iteration of the shrine. Here's Paris during the daytime loading screen. We also have a Pineco dangling from a tree in front of the shrine. And here's Oddish walking by the shrine at a seemingly brisk pace, off to do Oddish things. Here's the nighttime loading screen to confirm that Oddish is indeed in the forest. And finally we have Psyduck, which is probably confused because it also forgot what it needs to do to encounter Celebi. I can relate, Psyduck, as I have to look it up every single time. Something about a GS ball? We survive the forest and head north on Route 34 until we reach our next stop.
Pokemon Daycare.
Route 34 is where the Pokemon Daycare is located. For context, there was a daycare in Kanto for Pokemon Red and Blue, yet they only allowed one Pokemon to be looked after, while Johto introduced the ability to have two Pokemon looked after at once. And when two Pokemon love each other very much, especially if one of them is a Ditto, then you may end up with a baby. So here's some baby Pokemon at the daycare. We'll start with Cleffa, right outside the front door. You can see the red roof, glass door, square tiles around the glass door, and the unique support beam style all in the background. No other houses in Johto match this architecture. We also have Pichu, who is east of the daycare in the grass, but you can see the unique roof tiles lining up. Next we have Smoochum, who is near the water on the west side of the daycare, with the building visible in the background, as we can still see the red roof and the glass door. Here's a reference image to make sure that we're lining up with what we see. We also have Magby walking through a puddle which exists just south of the daycare, and we can see that again in the reference image. For the record, there are many other baby Pokemon introduced in Johto, yet they must be more adventurous, as they strayed far enough from the daycare that they went into unknown territory. No, not you. I said we were done with unknown, let's get out of here. Okay, brace yourselves, this next stop is going to take a while.
Goldenrod City.
Deep breaths, everyone, as the amount of cards in Goldenrod is seemingly astronomical compared to every location we've seen thus far. If you haven't seen my Kanto video, the most cards previously found at one location was 8, and Goldenrod has more than triple that. One step at a time though. We'll start off with the Radio Tower Stadium card, which looks more like the Eiffel Tower here, but it's the iconic building from Goldenrod in the main games. Since there isn't a reference image that matches this depiction of the tower, we have to go off the fact that Goldenrod is the largest city in Johto, which, I mean, this card has skyscrapers in the background. We can also note that this is from the Neo series, where Johto was introduced, limiting our options population-wise outside of Goldenrod to basically Saffron City, maybe Celadon, which it's definitely not. And finally, it's a radio tower, and there's no other radio towers in Kanto or Johto. Thankfully, the rest of these cards we can use some reference images for, like for Team Rocket's Evil Deeds, which is from the exact same set as the Radio Tower card, but this artwork has a more honest depiction of the Radio Tower from Pokemon Gold and Silver. The executives didn't have names in Gen 2, but likely turned into Ariana and Archer. And behind them is a gray skeleton of a building, which is honestly pretty spot on with the mainline game's artwork. Luckily for us, the inside of the tower is more exciting because we have the voice of Johto, Mary, giving one of her broadcasts over the airwaves. Here's her setup in Pokemon Crystal, which isn't a perfect match since the microphone is on the table versus dangling, but bear with me here. I'll also throw in this Mary's Request card, which shows her interviewing Jasmine from Olivine City, again with the same mic setup. Now both of these cards came out before Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but I am throwing in this screenshot from that game anyways because here is her upgraded setup, along with Mary herself and her pink hair on the second floor of the radio tower. So I think this is more what they wanted to be able to visualize in Gold and Silver, they just didn't have the technology yet for the Game Boy. Okay, we can head back outside. Next, we have this Eevee leaping in the air, and behind it we can see the Goldenrod Game Corner. Here's the building in Heart Gold for context. If we go inside the Goldenrod Game Corner, we have gambling, hooray! Specifically, the card flip game and the arcade game, which both state Goldenrod Game Corner in the names, so they make it by default. Now, the screen is already pretty cluttered, so I had to get a bit creative here, but the Goldenrod Game Corner cards had a different artwork in Japan. Due to American gambling issues, they had to change the artwork before the Neo series release, so these two cards are technically banned artworks. And good thing they did that because now gambling is virtually unheard of in the US, lol. Another building we can check out in Goldenrod is the Flower Shop. Here's Flower Shop Lady, I'm sure it's on her birth certificate too, in front of her store, which we can see here in the northeast corner of town. We can also see the Flower Shop behind this Miltank, which seems to be in battle with her trainer, Whitney, the Goldenrod Gym leader. So let's focus on her for a second, because inside the Goldenrod Gym is Whitney. And not just Whitney, but also Whitney. But this one is from Pokemon Pocket, so it's not a physical card. Here's the inside of her gym in Heart Gold. We can see on the first card, she's standing in front of a stone archway about 5 or 6 feet away from her platform where she's standing in the Pokemon Pocket card. And if you've ever battled Whitney in Gold Silver or Heart Gold Soul Silver, then her Miltank has probably left a bad taste in your mouth. Okay, so we saw the OG radio tower, but it's time we see the modern radio tower. It's looking a lot more futuristic in Heart Gold Soul Silver with a red spire and an observation deck. There are a lot of Pokemon hanging out near the radio tower, so I won't spend a lot of time on each one. Here's Onix in front of the radio tower, along with his Steelix. Heart Gold also had the best energy cards ever made, and they often depicted real locations throughout Johto. So here's the Metal Energy. Sorry, that felt necessary. But also the radio tower. Drop a comment if you know that song because it's one of my faves. We also have a Pinsir looking pretty tough. Even though it's Gen 3, we have Aeron and Lairon also in Goldenrod. Here's another Eevee standing close by to the radio tower. We've got this Team Rocket's Trickery card showcasing 2 more Team Rocket executives. That's Petrol on the left and Proton on the right. Here's Scyther flying around the tower, along with oh snap!
Fly high, banana leaf palm prawn. My guy, the Pokemon Don 1.
I don't know if any of us saw that one coming, but my goat makes a cameo one region before it was due. We'll see you in Hoenn, my friend. Anyways, here's a Pineco. Just kidding. It's deep though, it's not even in city limits. Here's Clefairy in front of the tower, and you can also see the train station adjacent, which houses the bullet train to Kanto. And next to that is the same Clefairy shifted a few feet to the right, now completely in front of the train station. I don't know what it was with the Heart Gold era repeating the exact same Pokemon in the same spot shifted a few feet, but we saw that with Meganium at the Indigo Plateau in the Kanto video, and no big spoilers, but we're going to see that happen again several times. Okay, we're so close. Here's Fortress hanging out over the water, which does exist on the west end of Goldenrod. It's interesting that there's 3 different evolutions depicted here, implying maybe a lot of time has elapsed and the Onix evolved into Steelix, the Aeron into Lairon, and the Pineco into Fortress? Maybe? We see that in other towns as well, just to have that on your radar. Finally, we have Sharpedo. This one took a lot of time to decipher, as it looks like it's hovering near a beach town, but it's the fine details that really narrow down this search range. We have a Heart Gold era gym and water, so that really limits it to 3 towns, but it's the unique fence/barricade looking thing, plus the street lights and the color of the ground limiting our choices to just Goldenrod. I will note that the gym sign is on the opposite side, along with the gym not being oriented properly based on Sharpedo's location, and that gym should be shifted 90 degrees to the left, but hey, that's just artistic style. And we made it through Goldenrod. Let's celebrate getting through Goldenrod by hanging out with some bugs.
National Park.
National Park is our next stop where the bug catching contest took place. The goal was to catch the single best bug Pokemon, which was graded by judges versus all the other competitors. So we're about to see some bugs, but first, here's Cyndaquil hanging out on top of a lamppost. The lampposts are one of the iconic features of the park, and we can see that here with the aerial view of the national park. We already saw Chikorita and Totodile in this video, so now we've got all three starters throughout Johto. And I like to think that this Metapod is pondering its life choices directly below Cyndaquil. Once night falls, we have a Kakuna hanging out in the plants. We also have this Hoot Hoot flying overhead. Hoot Hoot isn't a bug Pokemon, but it is found in the park at night. We can see Hoot Hoot hanging out here at night. I just love saying its name. I don't know, it's so funny to me. Anyways, we've got Combee with just a hint of the lamppost in the back. Same goes for this Butterfree with a lamppost in the bottom right corner. And finally we have Kricketune, and Kricketune doesn't have any lampposts, but we do have this unique two-tiered fountain, which just so happens to exist in the middle of the Pokeball-shaped national park. We also have those trees in the background to show the nature surrounding the fountain, plus Kricketune can be found here in Heart Gold. On Route 37, we have this Twins card. Now at first glance, there's nothing significant here, but there are a handful of twins that can be battled in Heart Gold, but only one pair of twins has a Meryl and Mareep to battle, and that is Tori and Till on Route 37. Mic drop. Alright, let's go to Ekritique.
Ekritique City.
Welcome to Ekritique City, the city chock full of lore. We'll touch on some of that soon, but first, let's start at the gate from Route 37 where we have this Growlithe. I'll throw up this reference image so we can see the match on the red roof and the unique wooden supports. Ekritique also has a gym where we have Morty, the ghost-type gym leader. Here's Morty at the back of his gym in Heart Gold, in addition to this Pokemon Pocket Morty from a different angle. Here's the back of the gym to match on that location. Alright, now we get to focus on the most iconic spot in Ekritique City, and that is the Burned Tower. I won't go into a ton of detail here, but the story goes that 3 unnamed Pokemon perished tragically when the tower caught on fire. A lot of lore suggests these Pokemon may have been Jolteon, Flareon, and Vaporeon. So along comes Ho-Oh, the legendary Pokemon, who has the power to revive. So these 3 Pokemon re-emerged as the 3 legendary dogs, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. Here's Raikou in front of the burned tower from the original games. We also have a matching screenshot from Pokemon Crystal to show that it's burned. Obviously not a one-to-one match, but they did the best they could with Game Boy graphics. We also have Entei and Suicune, which don't appear to have any identifiable landmarks on their own, but check this out when I put these images together. Ta-da! They are all together in Ekritique. Fast forward to Heart Gold, we have the Burned Tower Stadium card. We also have a Japanese promo card with the same artwork for those who are interested. Notice the roof tile pattern and the vertical wooden support beams because we're going to reference those for some upcoming cards, like Umbreon for example. At first, I did not think much of this card, but the wavy roof tile pattern and colors match the roof of the burned tower on the card. We also have this Crobat flying around the burned tower, where we can see the destroyed roof and the aforementioned tiles. This next one is interesting though. We have Wobbuffet again, and I feel like everything I've mentioned up to this point has been pretty somber. You know, like the lore is dark for a kid's game, right? So here's Wobbuffet celebrating the burned tower. There appears to be fireworks going off, which is a little untimely considering the cause of the tower's destruction. And furthermore, a ghost-type gym in this town? Really? Feel like you should have ran that by the board or something. I assume there's a board. Anyways, here's the burned tower again with Espeon in front. We also have this blue-roofed building, which is the Ekritique Dance Theater. We can see that image match here, plus of course the burned tower in the back. Similarly, here's Espeon again, but the notable difference here is how much I don't like this card because Espeon looks like an alien and I just need it to go away. Here's Magmar on the roof stabilizing itself on the vertical wooden beam I mentioned from the stadium card. Now I said the burned tower was destroyed, right? But surprise, we can still go inside. Here's Raticate on the top floor of the burned tower. Despite Sachiko's unique art style, we can still see the burn marks around the hole in the middle of the floor, which matches the top floor image here from Heart Gold, revealing a hint of the lower floor below. Here's a Coughing on the top floor of the tower, and then we have presumably the same Coughing now hovering over the hole in the floor. We also have Wheezing on the bottom floor of the tower looking upwards, in addition to the same Wheezing from another angle still on the bottom floor of the tower. we can use this reference image to lock in Weezing's exact location right here. Maybe. This seems like a good time to mention that Magmar, Raticate, Koffing, and Weezing can all be caught inside the Burn Tower in either Gold and Silver or Heart Gold and Soul Silver. We almost made it. Remember earlier I mentioned the speculation that it was originally the 3 evolutions that perished when the tower collapsed. Pokemon appears to be hinting at that by including the evolutions here in Ecruteak City. However, there are 5 trainers inside the Ecruteak Dance Theater, and each one of them has one of the 5 evolutions. So it could be the Pokemon just running amok through the city. I'm not sure if it's one or the other. Anyways, here's Flareon in front of one of the Ecruteak houses with the unique architecture. We can see a match here and here. There is also a Firestone, which if you were not aware, this is how Eevee evolves into Flareon. Here's Jolteon and a Thunderstone sprinting out of Ecruteak, possibly a hint that it is the Jolteon from inside the Dance Theater, but we may never know. And here's Vaporeon and a Waterstone with 2 Ecruteak houses behind it. Finally, we have this Heracross card. It's hard to pinpoint the exact location, but we do have the Dance Theater and 2 houses behind Heracross, plus the Bell Tower further away in the background, which we are headed to now. A quick stroll through the Bell Chime Trail leads us to our next stop.
Bell Tower.
The Bell Tower also has a lot of lore, as this is supposedly where Ho-Oh resides. It technically is a part of Ecruteak City, but since it's not directly accessible and there's a lot more cards here, it just made sense to split these up. But all of these cards are going to feature the Bell Tower. We'll start it off with this Fire Energy, where we can see Ho-Oh and the Bell Tower. And here's the 10-story Bell Tower in its full might and glory to match. We've also got this Ho-Oh card with the Bell Tower in the background. Here's a Bayleaf looking longingly at the Bell Tower from afar. Then the next card, Bayleaf made it to the tower. What a story. Hooray for them. Here's Poliwhirl leaping out of a tree near the Bell Tower. That's one way to honor the ancestors. We've got a Lunatone here with a tiny Bell Tower hiding way in the back. Here's Larvitar emerging from its cave with the silhouette off in the distance. Then at night, Larvitar says, "Hey, we're going." I'm guessing Larvitar may have evolved because here's Pupitar training hard with just a hint of the Bell Tower in the corner. Then we have Tyranitar, and the Bell Tower still stands tall. Lots of evolutions at this location. Here's Stunky at the tower, then it evolves into Skuntank, still at the same place it's been its whole life. We've also got this Murkrow resting on one of the roofs of the tower, which evolves into Honchkrow, posing at the base of the tower. Here's Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee training at night with the tower in the background. I'm not 100%, but it does seem like they're on opposite sides of the tower, so maybe they're like training to duke it out at the tower soon. Some real pay-per-view type action, you know? We've also got this Houndour in front of the tower, but no evolution for you, friend. Sorry. We've got Vaporeon hanging out near the tower as well. There doesn't appear to be any water features nearby in the mainline games, but in certain artist depictions, like one we'll see at near the end of our tour, there appears to be a small river running near the tower. Finally, we have Hoppip, who unlike Wobbuffet doesn't seem thrilled about the ill-advised fireworks show near a protected landmark. Since we can see the roof ornament for the first time, I'll throw up this reference image so we can confirm the Ho-Oh statues and the flower below the golden rings. And that is truly it for Ecruteak and the Bell Tower. We're headed westbound towards our next stop, and no, it is not the level from Mario Kart 64.
Moo Farm.
A lot less lore here, as it's a farm out on Route 39. We'll start it off with the Moo Milk card, which is a Neo Trainer card, so a little less accurate back in Gen 2, but it still appears to be a barn full of milk with Cleffa Myron. We do have a barn at the Moo farm, which we can see here from Pokemon Crystal, so that's the presumed inspiration. We also have this silo, which didn't exist in the Gold and Silver games, but in Heart Gold we can see in the southwest corner a 2-story silo with a blue dome roof. And we have some Pokemon hanging out near the silo. Tauros and Miltank both probably live at the farm, being a bull and a cow, so it makes sense to me. Note that Miltank has Mount Silver looming way in the background. We also have Parasect hanging out not too far from the silo, which we can see in the distant background. There's also a Skiploom that we can see near the silo. It also has trees, a white fence, and some flowers, which I was able to align with this Route 39 screenshot. Okay, we may smell like manure, but we're off to our next stop.
Olivine City.
Olivine City is where the 5th badge is obtained. We saw Jasmine and Ampharos on the Mary's Request card back in Goldenrod, but here's Ampharos in front of the Olivine Lighthouse. I believe in Heart Gold, this is actually Jasmine's Pokemon named Amphi, but it's used outside of her party with the important role of Lighthouse Keeper. We also have a Lightning Energy card that depicts both Amphi and the Olivine Lighthouse. I just love these energy cards so much. As for Jasmine herself, here she is standing in about the same spot we just saw on the energy card with the lighthouse in the background. Then for the Jasmine's Gaze Ultra Rare, she's at the top of the lighthouse, as we can see her on the balcony with the railing and the view of the water below. Jasmine and Amphi make an appearance on the top floor of the lighthouse in Heart Gold, as we can see in the screenshot here. Jasmine is also found in her gym, which has a lot of metal since she is a steel-type gym leader. Here she is standing in front of a metal archway, and then for this Pokemon Pocket exclusive, she's now standing directly under the arch. Really not that much different than what we've seen for some of these other cards where they shift a few feet to the side. We can see both of those spots in this shot from her gym in Heart Gold. Finally, we have another Jasmine's Gaze card, this time the Secret Illustration Rare. This card cracks me up since she has a mouthful of sandwich. I had to remind myself that we actually do see Jasmine in one other spot in Olivine City, and that is the Olivine Cafe, but only on Wednesdays from 1 to 2 p.m. where she is sitting at the counter. The card depicts a lot more food and some different colors, but it's ultimately a match with this reference image from the cafe. And that'll do it for Olivine. We're going to take another detour and head to the Disneyland of Pokemon battling.
Battle Frontier.
Welcome to the Battle Frontier, a haven for those who want the ultimate challenge. The Battle Frontier was established first in Sinnoh and has 5 different battle arenas, but they kinda just copied and pasted them for Heart Gold, Soul Silver, hence why they make this list for the Johto region. First we have the Battle Tower, one of the 5 locations. We can see the match here with the 3 directional stairs and the red vertical lines plus the glass. Inside, we can meet our first Frontier Brain. Just roll with it. This is Palmer, and here he is inside the Battle Tower. Behind him, we can see some red trim, vertical lights, and whatever those machines are in the corner. Additionally, we have Regigigas and Dragonite, both of which are battled at the Battle Tower. Next, we have Thornton. Here he is standing in front of the Battle Factory. We can see the building behind Thornton matches the Battle Factory exterior in this reference image. If we go inside the Battle Factory, we have Electivire, and it's tricky to see behind it, but there are the similarly colored walls along with a large gray half-octagon shaped door, which matches the reference image. Next, we have Dusknoir and Blaziken, 2 Pokemon battled in the Battle Arcade. Both of these Pokemon belong to the 3rd Frontier Brain, Dahlia. We can see the large screen behind both of them, plus the circular lights on both sides of the screen. Moving on to the Battle Castle, we have Lady Caitlin represented by the Castle Valet Duroc. Who knows if I'm pronouncing that right, but all I can think of is, can you smell what Duroc is cooking? So I'm sure that's wrong. But Duroc defends the castle with Empoleon and Staraptor, which we can see has the red curtains, teal floor, gold stairs, and the banners on the walls that all match the reference image here. Finally, we have the 5th Frontier Brain, Argenta, who represents the Battle Hall. This arena is built like a runway stage, which we can see here in the reference image. However, we need to see a little more, so I'll extend this reference image so we can see the big screen on the wall. Now we can see a match when we look at Butterfree and Drifblim, who both show the dark bars with the circular lights, Butterfree's big screen, and Drifblim's runway. And that'll do it for Battle Frontier. Time to ride the barrel and get pitted. We're going surfing.
Whirl Islands.
The Whirl Islands are quite the location, and the home of Lugia, the cover Pokemon for Pokemon Silver. So we'll kick it off with this water energy because it shows Lugia and some whirlpools on the left side. I'll throw in this screenshot so you can see the whirlpools blocking the entrances to the islands. Additionally, we have this shiny Lugia emerging from one of the whirlpools. We also have this Mantine leaping out of the water nearby the whirlpool with a couple of the islands visible in the background. We also have this Magikarp leaping out of the water, again with a whirlpool visible nearby. This Tentacool art is clever, since we can see all of the whirlpools and the islands behind Tentacool. All of these Pokemon can be caught on Route 41 where the Whirl Islands reside. Finally, we have this Jigglypuff, which cannot naturally be found at the Whirl Islands, but we do see it on land nearby. In Johto, Jigglypuff can be found at the Safari Zone, which is just a little west of the Whirl Islands, so perhaps it's referencing that here, but that's all we have for the islands. We find the nearest dry land in Towaloff.
Cyanwood City.
Whew! Now that we've seen both legendary cover Pokemon, we can start focusing on the Pokemon you really came here to see. And there's only one Pokemon in Cyanwood City, and it's our boy, Shuckle. Shuckle is pretty common in Cyanwood City if you use Rock Smash, which we can see some breakable rocks here at the north end of town. In the heart of town, we can see the architecture of these houses with the unique blue roof tiles which align with the houses behind Shuckle, plus the water since Cyanwood is a beach town. Now seems as good a time as any to go on a safari.
Safari Zone Gate.
The Safari Zone isn't exclusive to Kanto, as Johto has its own extensive Safari Zone. However, we won't be heading inside here as the gate will suffice for this video. First we have Gloom, which is lounging in front of the sign leading to the Safari Zone gate. We can see a match with the reference image, which also shows the Safari Ball on the sign. We can see the same sign behind Murkrow, who is enjoying itself at the gate. And finally we have Grimer selling some apples or something. It took a long time for me to realize that this was the Safari Zone gate, but we can see the tents behind Grimer, including some pink color on the canopy in the back, which checks out with the reference image showing the alternating blue and pink tents with the items on the ground underneath. All three of these Pokemon can be caught in the Safari Zone as well, so they're just taking a break from their main environment. Okay, we reached a dead end, so we're going to head all the way back to Ecruteak City and start heading east.
Mount Mortar.
Mount Mortar has one Pokemon, and it's this Marill. We can see the waterfall behind Marill, plus the hole in the ceiling, which gives off more of a volcano vibe than a traditional cave. Marill can also only be caught in Mount Mortar and the Safari Zone. But based on the fact that we're inside of rock formation, I believe this is where it lines up in the game since we have land on both sides of the waterfall leading up to the top floor of the accessible mountain. Just a little further and we reach our next town.
Mahogany Town.
Welcome to Mahogany Town, the home of the 7th badge. We have one card here and it is Feraligatr. Our friend Totodile has come a long way from Cherry Grove. We can tell we're in Mahogany based on this reference image showing the red roof with the pointy top in the middle, along with the 2 pane windows on the right side of the house and the vertical green wood panel door on the left side. There appears to be another building further in the back, so I presume Feraligatr is standing in the front of the house on the eastern side of town heading towards Blackthorn City. But we have one detour to make before we head there ourselves. We're going to the lake!
Lake of Rage.
Lake of Rage is one of the coolest locations in all of Johto, as there is an enormous water body, a hidden house, and a guaranteed shiny Pokemon smack dab in the middle of the lake. First, we'll start off with Noctowl, perched on a tree overlooking the lake. We can see the red pointy roof building where the fishing guru lives off in the distance. Next, we have Miss Magius, who is enjoying the view from the roof of that same building. We also have Slowking, who is enjoying a rainy day at the lake. This time we can see 2 informational signs for the fishing guru's house and the lake itself. We also have Swablu, who is flying over the lake along with Mount Silver and Mount Mortar lurking in the background. Not a ton of additional details here since Swablu isn't naturally found here, but we do have the Heart Gold era borders, the 2 mountains, and the serene lake. However, like the name says, this is the Lake of Rage, and the environment can get pretty rough, especially when shiny Gyarados is present. Here's Gyarados in the center of the lake, and while it looks more like an ocean in this artwork, this screenshot shows you that you can be deep in the middle of the lake and not have any land nearby. Plus, shiny Gyarados is a fixed Pokemon located only in the middle of this lake. And full disclosure, there are other shiny Gyarados cards in the TCG, but this is the only one featuring a background that seems plausible. Okay, let's go get our 8th and final gym badge.
Blackthorn City.
Hello? Is anyone here? I didn't think we'd ever visit a city that didn't have at least one card present, but here we are in the 2nd region and that hypothesis has already been proven wrong. I'll save some time here and say that there are no cards found in the Dragon's Den either, so we'll press on to the Ice Path. Hope you brought a jacket!
Ice Path.
Ice Path is very close to Blackthorn City, but a completely different environment. We have endless ice crystals lining the cave, making for an easily identifiable landscape. The first card we have here is Swinub, which is somehow floating in the air. Pretty cool party trick if I do say so myself. Here's Swinub present in the daytime ice path loading screen. We also have Delibird, which has the same ice crystals as Swinub. I'll throw in a screen grab of the ice path from Heart Gold so you can see the environment beyond just the loading screen. Finally, we have Zubat, which is flying into the cave with some of its friends. We can see the ice crystals again in the background, plus the morning loading screen features Zubat in the upper left corner. And all three of these Pokemon can be caught in the ice path. Now let's get out of here, it's freezing! That was technically our final stop in Johto, as I wasn't able to find any Pokemon depicted in Mount Silver, so we'll quickly do a flyover and look at two final cards while we make our way towards the Elite Four. On Route 45 we have Black Belt's Training. We actually saw another Black Belt's Training in the Kanto video, and it does appear that we're going to see one of these cards for every region we're going to visit in the future as well. This particular card is on Route 45, the only location in Johto featuring a Black Belt trainer on the same route as a rectangular water body and a small tree. Based on the included screenshot, this appears to be a berry tree as it's much smaller than the standard background tree. And Black Belt Kenji is battled just about 25 paces north of here, so I'm guessing being down here by the pond is just part of his training regimen. From here we say hi to Professor Elm one last time before we head off to become League Champ. On Route 26 we have Azumarill laying waste to the earth itself. There are only 3 houses in the game with that particular combination of red door, red roof, and the small 4-pane window, and they are all between New Bark Town and Mount Silver. Based on the proximity of the trees in the background to the other 2 houses not in this image, I believe Azumarill is standing right here in front of this house. We can head to Mount Silver for formality's sake, but that's really it for Johto. Head east from right there and you'll battle the Elite Four, but we're not headed that way because we completed our tour. Alright, we're back, but we are not done yet as there are a handful of cards that I'm positive are in Johto, but we're unable to pinpoint where they are exactly. Now, I know I mentioned Mount Silver a minute ago, and we're about to see several cards depicting Mount Silver, but they're all so far away from it that it's hard for me to say that they're at Mount Silver, you know? First is Exeggutor, who seems pleased that it used a leaf stone to evolve. Can't really blame it, I wouldn't really want to be an egg either when I could be a palm tree. We also have Bayleaf looking back towards Mount Silver while heading in the opposite direction. We have this Fighting Energy card showing Mount Silver and Sudowoodo. Here's Mankey swinging through the trees with Mount Silver way off in the distance. And like many of the other cards that evolved, I believe Mankey evolved into Primeape, who must be standing south of the Whirl Islands because the Bell Tower and Mount Silver are in the opposite direction. We also have Drifloon and Drifblim both flying high above Johto. On the Drifloon card, you can see the bridge to Sprout Tower is now red, but also the tower is only 2 stories, plus the river that flows all the way past the Bell Tower, so take it all in with a grain of salt, but it is possible that the water the Vaporeon was playing in near the Bell Tower could be referenced right here. Drifblim also shows the Bell Tower in the distance. Here's a Pokegear trainer card, which straight up has the Johto map on it, so how can we not include that? Here's Donphan on what I wanted to be Route 32 where the Execute was because we can see the bullet train overpass, but there isn't a rocky area south of there, nor is Donphan, or Phanpy for that matter, anywhere nearby. So I believe this is somewhere in Johto outside the playable area where the bullet train passes through to Kanto. Here is Chansey inside the Pokemon Center. We can see from the wallpaper pattern and the PC in the corner of the desk that this is from Heart Gold. Here's a screenshot to line those up. Chansey is reaching for an oval stone, which causes it to evolve into Blissey, so it can then head out with the efficiency of an automated car wash. Behind Blissey, we can now see the big screen and the map in the background that align with the reference image. Now, I'm sure at least one of you is in the middle of typing, "You forgot about so-and-so from that one place," with pure disdain on your face. I didn't do this next bit in the Kanto video, but I want to be as transparent as possible for this one, so I'm including the honorable mentions that didn't pass my 3 rules. These cards all feel like Johto, and are possibly the cards you think I failed to include. But do any of the following cards have concrete evidence? Or would it be dismissed in court? Gosh, I hope it doesn't go to court. Remember Rule 3 regarding too much artistic expression. Okay, this is going to go quick, so listen up! Here's another for alligator, so the mind goes to mahogany again and we can see the lookout tower, but there's a striped awning on the left and a brick wall that are unexplainable. Honchkrow gives off goldenrod vibes, but no stairs lead up to a curved red roof building. Mawile is flying high above what looks like a route near Mount Mortar, could even see the cuttable bush, but that water and the rock features do not line up with anywhere in Johto. Jinx is catchable in the ice path, but the other ice path Pokemon had crystals, not just cave walls. Whitney's Miltank could very well be at Moo Moo Farm, but if you recall what I said earlier, there was no silo back in the Gold and Silver days, so this could be a random barn somewhere else. Rapidash wants to be in Violet City, but that tower has 4 stories, alternating roof colors, and the other building ornaments do not line up. Hariyama is in front of a house, but the white beams didn't line up with any buildings in Johto. Flareon is in front of a blue roofed building, but that window awning and the raised foundation are unlike anything we've seen in Johto. This grass energy card features Celebi, which should imply Ilex Forest, but those trees are sparse and there's water in the background, which is off. Golbat is in a cave with a waterfall, but Golbat can be found in any cave in multiple half waterfalls. Typically, stairs imply a real location, but Cleffa's background doesn't align with any wooden staircases I saw in Johto. Apom could be in Azalea Town, since it can be caught via headbutting trees here, but the thatch roof building differs too much for my liking. If I had to pick a location for this Mischievous, I'd say Route 47 because it can be found at the Cliff Cave here, but I'd expect to see 2 footbridges if that were a perfect match. There's that darned curved footbridge, which is now red, but that water wheel building is where the gym would be. Persian is near the Violet City Lantern, but there is a willow tree here, and that lake looks enormous. Typhlosion is in the same spot as the Meowth card we just saw, but now the path is fully overgrown and that building should be the Violet City Gym. This Typhlosion shifted over and we can see that wheel again. Is this ancient times Violet City? Here's Spearow with another Violet City Lantern in the back, but those trees look out of place and there's no bamboo fences in Violet. Fearow is near that red footbridge with the same tree from the Spearow card. This might be a good time to mention that all the cards giving off Violet vibes are all depicted by the same artist, so I might be regretting Laron. Here's Eevee in that wheel but paved ground. Here's a Tailo next to a weather vane, so this could be Newbark, but Tailo is found in Cherry Grove. Yes, birds fly, but that is a reach on its own. Shiny Suicune could be at the Lake of Rage, but it's not naturally found here in the game and there's no Mount Silver in the back, so it's hard to confirm. Here's Staryu in the water with some lily pads, a willow tree, and a red footbridge! Do you see why this town gave me a headache? The same artist made this Poliwhirl card back in the Neo era, so maybe Staryu was just an homage to that. Here's Shuppet tripping outdoors, and that could be Mount Silver, but it's not much to go off of on its own. Ethan's Quilava implies Johto, and we have some autumnal leaves here, so it could be the Bell Chime Trail to the Bell Tower, but there's no landmark, so how can we say it's not just some random forest in the fall? Same goes for the Sudowoodo, no landmark, so this could be anywhere. The Pinsir is even more of a reach, but those Japanese maple leaves go hard. Here's a Lucky Stadium card that depicts Ho-Oh flying overhead, but the tower in the background is 5 stories, so that's way off. Also, there's no outdoor stadium in Ecruteak. There's no outdoor stadium in Goldenrod either, so while it looks like Lugia is flying over the OG radio tower from the first card, I can't lock this Lucky Stadium in either. I looked for that house below Vulpix, but there's nowhere with that roof style and a singular tree out front in Johto. Finally, I feel the need to include Pokemon Collector since the Twins card ended up being real. I looked at every Poke Collector battled in Heart Gold and none had a Smoochum and a Pichu, but perhaps they are found indoors somewhere. Internet, do your thing. Now, if you've watched my Kanto video, I said there's a chance I was human and I would miss one, or more. That ended up being true, and I'm still kicking myself for it. One card I must have straight up deleted while editing because it was on my list and then it suddenly wasn't in the final video. Whoopsies. The rest are Heart Gold era borders that I assumed were Johto cards that ended up being in Kanto. Live and learn, but for full transparency, here's what should have been added to Kanto. First, we have Ditto in a cave with some crystals. In Fire Red Leaf Green, the Cerulean Cave is just a cave, but in Heart Gold, that cave is suddenly littered with crystals. Same goes for this Electrode card, also in the crystal-ridden Cerulean Cave. Both of these Pokemon can be caught in Cerulean Cave in Heart Gold. Next is the one I deleted, and I'll repent forever. It's this awesome Slowpoke card living its best life in a fountain. The background details show that there is a building right behind the fountain, even an informational sign, because that is the Celadon Shopping Center, putting Slowpoke in this fountain right in the middle of Celadon City. Speaking of Celadon City, here's Porygon. And wow, that is not much to go off of, but it was on my Kanto list of maybes. But I wouldn't have ever figured it out if I didn't look at the Heart Gold version of Celadon City. Look at that unique lantern shape, very boxy. Well, it turns out they're all over Celadon, and based on the blue and white building next to Porygon, it must be standing right here on the east edge of town. The building colors are ultimately different, but similar enough with the white paint that it lines up for me. We also have Porygon 2, which has this blue curvy thing next to it. Again, I didn't think much of it at the time, but it turns out these things are all over Saffron City in Heart Gold. I was too fixated on the Fire Red version of the map when I was making that video, so I blew right past it. I can't pinpoint the exact location since there are so many of these things around town, but the bricks lead me to believe it's in the northeast corner near the gym and the fighting dojo. I think the hardest part about the Kanto video is that there's just so many iterations of the game, between red and blue and yellow, gold and silver and crystal, fire red, leaf green, heart gold, soul silver, and let's go Pikachu, let's go Eevee. There were just so many subtle details between each version of the game. One example of this is Tentacool, here with Janine, the Fuchsia City Gym Leader. So you'd think it would have been obvious for me at the time, but when I looked closer, I didn't see that color fence around town. But that's just me getting my wires crossed with all the different versions of the game with the different fence colors. Because in Fire Red Leaf Green, they're a light color, but in Let's Go, they're a dark color. Little things like that. But here's the spot where I think they were standing in Let's Go, since we have the small pond in addition to the fence, and again, Janine. My bad. Finally, I'm not even counting this one as a miss since it's the same art style, but there is a Japanese promo of the Indigo League, and I mainly wanted to include it because while I believe that's still technically in Kanto, it's right on the border, and I didn't mention this before, but that's Mount Silver lingering in the distance, which is in Johto. So that's it! Now it's time to total up some final stats. Phew, those are some big numbers. That's gonna be a total of 202 cards. Throw in the cards from Pokemon Pocket, that's 4 additional cards for a grand total of 206 Johto cards. Well, my friends, we made it to the end. I poured blood, sweat, and tears into making this video, and by that, I mean I got a couple hand cramps, but it took a long time to make, so I hope you were able to learn something new. If you haven't seen my Kanto video yet, feel free to head over there and see where this series all began, and I'm gonna start chipping away at the Hoenn video next. Generation 3 is my favorite, so I'm super excited to see who makes the list. My hope is to have most of these regions knocked out by the end of 2026, but between analyzing all the cards, animating everything, recording dialogue, and editing the video, it's probably close to 100 hours of work for each video, so hopefully we can all have some patience. That being said, I love making these videos, I'm passionate about Pokemon card artwork, and if you made it this far, you probably are too, so I'm happy we're going on this journey together. I'll see you next time.